I was working at Nike in the early 90s. It was the early days of the internet, and there was a couple of us that were allowed to get dial-up access at Nike to test this new thing, to see what we could do with it. So that was the same year that I attended this digital storytelling festival in Crested Butte, Colorado. It was the early days of the World Wide Web, and there was a few of us that were trying to figure out what to do with it. How could we tell stories on this thing? And there wasn't anything like bloggers or blogs or anything yet. And I had long hair for a long time, down to my waist, and I just cut it off, and as you see there on the right, and it was just starting to grow out a little bit, and so I got out of the shower in Crested Butte, Colorado, and it was about 1.5 inches long, 2 inches long, and I dried it, and it kind of stood up like it did when I was a little kid, and I go, that's interesting. So I got a little conditioner, and I fortified it, and then I went on to the festival. I went in, and I met with everybody, and they go, oh, hi. They just thought that was my hair, and then I went back to Nike, and they go, oh, another hairstyle, okay. And so that's how it happened. My hair has become this approachability index. It's kind of like, have you ever noticed the behavior with pregnant women? I mean, people go up and they feel like they can touch your belly even though you're a stranger, right? And so I get that all the time. People come and go, oh, dude, your hair. They come up and rub my head like I'm a Buddha or something. Which I like it. What it becomes is like this. It's like this welcoming smile to everyone. I walk down the street and everybody just like, are you serious? So it opens conversations. Flight attendants, everyone. So it's amazing and I love it. And so I was at this conference on the East Coast a couple months ago, and there was this woman. Her name's Meg, and she came up to me and she goes, "Hey, I didn't meet you. I wanted to meet you. I was on this flight from Newark, New York to Seattle in February 2012. I sat behind you on the plane. I took a picture of you, and I posted it on social media. I got all these comments. I wish I would have met you." I go, "What?" She goes, "And here's your picture." She had it on her phone. So this is a picture. She sent it to me. I go, "Okay, that's weird a little bit, but also, why didn't you introduce yourself?" And so I was thinking, like, what if she had, this was like 3 years ago, what if she had introduced herself? She does this really cool stuff. What if we had started some collaboration on something? So it was a missed opportunity. And that's basically what our lives are like, it's this series of intersections, all these opportunities. We try something. Maybe it's a dead end that we go down, and it doesn't yield anything. But if we hadn't gone down that dead end, we wouldn't have found this little cul-de-sac, this little alley down there, which led to something else. So, in life, the most meaningful thing that we have are the human interactions that we have. And I was in New York City recently, and since people take my picture all the time without asking, I figure I was just sitting on the subway, and I just took a few snaps there, and I saw these people, sitting in front of me, and I thought, if they had like holograms in front of them or signs around their neck that told me their history, who they were, what their story was, I bet we could find some kind of connection. And everyone loves observing people, and the little game in a restaurant. You try to guess, what their relationship is with each other and what they're doing. And so I look for every opportunity. I think I've turned into my dad. My dad used to talk to everyone when I was a teenager, and it embarrassed me. But now I talk to everyone. I make it a point, even when I'm on an elevator, you're in this 3-by-3 foot awkward box, and everyone's standing there, looking at their phones or looking up at the numbers, and I always start off, I say, a bunch of strangers, I say, "Thank you, everyone, for accepting this short meeting. First on the agenda, I'd like to," and by then, everyone has laughed, and everyone's starting to talk to each other. And that's really cool. And so you never know where things are going to end up. And this was, I was living in Portland, Oregon, and I buried my clothes under a tree in the dirt overnight. I didn't wash my hair for 3 days, and I was going to audition for a movie. I was an actor for some years, and that's when I had the long hair. So I stood in front of Gus Van Sant, to audition for my own Private Idaho. And Gus, he said, I walked in character. I mean, when I showed up to the casting office, they asked me to move along because they thought I was a homeless guy. And so I stood in front of him, and he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Kentucky, Western Kentucky." He goes, "Where in Western Kentucky?" And I said, "Murray, right between Possum Trot and Monkey's Eyebrow." And he said, "You're lying." And I said, "Why would I lie about that?" He goes, "Because I grew up when I was a kid in Mayfield, which is like 10 minutes from Murray. So it's in the middle of nowhere, next to the middle of nowhere." So he cast me in that movie, My Own Private Idaho, which started a string of appearances of the Hainsworth family. My 5-year-old daughter appeared as Uma Thurman as a 5-year-old in Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. And when I first set off to be an actor, moved to LA, and I got my first job at Hamburger Hamlet as a waiter. And I waited on all the stars. I waited on Elizabeth Taylor, Johnny Carson, Dean Martin, Alice Cooper. So I waited on all these people. And one thing that I realized immediately was, in this profession, you're 100% dependent on others for work. It's like, okay, that's kind of a helpless feeling. You're dependent on casting directors and producers. So I co-founded a theater there, the Rita Hayworth Theater at Sunset Gower Studios, for the sole purpose of creating work for me and my friends. And then when I moved to New York, I started a production company called Boom Productions, and we produced plays. And one of the first things I played in New York was a rabbit on stage. So when I reached back to the Kevin Bacon number, when I reached the Bacon number of 2, so as you can see, I was in a movie with James Russo, who was in My Own Private Idaho, and he was in Black Mass with Kevin Bacon, and I have a Bacon number of 2. And that's, if you're a Bacon number 1, then you were with Kevin Bacon in a movie. So I reached nirvana there, and I could, retire. But at that same time, some things happened, and Nike offered me a job, and it was a total change. And it's like they wanted me to come work in their creative department. And it's like I have no training, for art direction, design, nothing. And but it was a great opportunity. I said okay, and so when I started working inside a corporate world, first time I went into a meeting, I go, hey, this is just like acting. Because you walk into a conference room, everyone's done this, you walk into a conference room, and you see, okay, who's the major players? Who has the say here? Who are the supporting characters? What's being said? The text. What's really being said? The subtext. And so I felt very comfortable. And what do you do as a creative? You get in front of people and present and get shot down. And so that's what you do as an actor. I mean, you audition, and you get turned down until you get something. So, like, pitching is like super easy. That's what I was trained for. What was great at Nike was it was like this giant creative playground. Computers hadn't been invented yet, or they weren't on the desk at least. And so I went on photo shoots. I went on press checks. I learned what the difference between an industrial designer, a graphic designer, and art director was. I didn't know any of those things, and I kind of didn't respect any of those borders, and I just learned all of those, and that reflected on who I became later on. And when the computers came, I learned the computer programs, and I learned early on, and it's about making those connections, even in the corporate world, and even when I wasn't working with someone, if I saw someone that was one of the major players or supporting players, I stayed in touch with them. I learned a lesson. When I got on an elevator once with Phil Knight and Mark Parker, they said, hey, what are you working on? I just froze. I go, a hang tag? I couldn't think of anything, that was, my mind just kind of went blank. So from then I vowed, is like, okay, always, have something going in your mind, whether it's your own project or something that you're passionate about. So here's a project. Dave Larson, one of the marketing guys there who I got to know, we were launching the Presto. It was a shoe launched about 2000, and it came in 17 different colorways. It's very iconic, very simple shape, and I thought, you know what, that looks like a piece of art. And so I went to Dave, I said, can I have a few $1,000s to do something cool? He goes, sure. So I went to New York, got a gallery space in the meatpacking district, the early days of the meatpacking district, and I put the shoes on the wall and called it art, as you can see here, in black and white. So no branding, put wild postings around town, no swooshes or anything. Invited only art people, art critics to the opening. And people would come in, and they'd look at that wall, that shoe wall, and they'd put their hands behind their backs like you do when you look at art, and they go, wow, this is more about art than most of the art in the city, man. And it's because I called it art. They treated it like art, even though there was a footwear store, a Foot Locker, down the street where they could pick it up off the wall. And because of that, and other things that we did around that, when the shoes launched, they sold out. And so that really started my desire to get involved in all these different areas. And so when I ended up at Nike, Lego, and Starbucks, and I left after 20 years to start my own company, Tether, I want this was from way back in 2001. I wanted an art gallery. I wanted an art gallery where we could curate art and showcase artists. I wanted a retail space where we could create things to sell, things that we were passionate about, and then I wanted to do creative work for our clients. And so the first space that I got was an art gallery where we had art on the wall, we had products that we created, we had a 3D printer sitting next to a letterpress, and we created these beautiful works of art. We had community events there. One morning, a couple years ago, I was at my desk, and it was about 7:30 in the morning, and I got this call, and it went straight through to my office, and it said, Stanley, yeah, this is Ari Emanuel. I don't know if you know who I am, but so Ari Emanuel, okay, yeah, Ari Gold in Entourage, if you've seen Entourage. So he is if you don't know who he is, he's the most powerful person in Hollywood. He's the super agent, WME, William Morris Endeavor, and so he called up and wanted to talk. He goes, look, your brands are like, the big corporations of the world, these great products that we buy. Mine are movie stars and athletes and sports. He goes, can you imagine the press release if we said, former creative director, Nike, Lego, and Starbucks teams up with, Ari Emanuel, WME. He goes, people are going to say, what is going on over there? And so I went down to his Beverly Hills office, and we dated for a while to see if there was something there, and ended up, we went our separate ways. But what was cool, what was my favorite part of the whole dating process with him was when I sat in his office, I showed him my journey. I said, you know what? About 15 years ago or so, I was living here in LA, working at Hamburger Hamlet, going around trying to get an agent and trying to get some roles, and here are some of my headshots. And I said, and now I'm sitting in the office of the most powerful man in Hollywood, and you want to buy my business. I said, that's pretty cool. So entertain yourself. When I started working at Nike, they pretty much created a product, a shoe, and then they attached an athlete to it. They did amazing advertising, an event, and retail. And I was just kind of my ignorant, new self there. It's like, well, there's all these other places where the consumer are living, like their cell phones and video games and movies and TV shows and all that. And so this was after hours. I had my job, but after hours, I started creating this thing. We called it Swoosh Entertainment at the time. It's like Nike Entertainment. And this was before the days of branded entertainment. And we created, I found two other guys, designers that were interested in this, and we started creating this content. And then I found this business guy, and his name was Andrew Black, and he did the business development for us. And so we came up with movie ideas and video games, and we even shot a trailer for a TV show. We had to do it on the cheap talent, cheap production. And this is something that we pitched to Nickelodeon. It was called The Ref. It's about a fanatical ref who teaches kids about science and math. And we had, we presented all these, video games, a line of books that HarperCollins had wanted to publish, and the Nickelodeon, and all this. And we presented it to, the executive team, Phil Knight there, and they basically said, "Where did this come from?" And said, we just did it. And I think that was what I learned, is that it's those kind of non-work ordered projects that you do, things that you're not expected to do or not asked to do, but when you, with your clients, whether you're in-house or you have an agency, or you see an opportunity and you just grab it and you do it, that's what made the difference in my career. And now we're doing these amazing branded entertainment pieces for some of the most amazing companies in the world, like Red Bull Media House.
I think you're crazy.
This is my team at Tether that is doing this now. It was September of 2011. I had just landed in the Billund Airport in Denmark. So remember Andrew Black? He was the business guy in Nike Entertainment. Well, he had gone on to be president of Lego Americas, and he kept saying, "You should come talk to these people. They don't have anybody that does what you do." Kind of the look at all the creativity for the whole company, and global creative director type of role. And I finally went over and I said, "Okay, I'll talk to them." So I got my suitcase and I walked across the street to their headquarters. It's a very small town, and they interviewed with them, and they said, "Hey, we like you. Can you write a job description and your title for us?" And I said, "Sure." So global creative director at Nike, Lego sounds good. So I did so, and I was about halfway through the interviews, and one of the soon-to-be colleagues came in and said, "You better come and watch." And so I went into one of the rooms and I watched the conference rooms and watched the second plane hit the second tower, and I, it was a very sad day, but I was also stuck in Denmark for about a week, and I had told Nike, "I'm going to take like 2 days off," and so I had to figure out how to get back. But the amazing thing about Lego is there's very few companies, or the only company I can think of, where the company is the product is the company. So the Lego brick is the company. And that brick stands for endless play, for unlimited imagination. You get like 6 bricks together and you can make thousands of different combinations. And Lego has that amazing history. It was an amazing experience working there. One thing that when I first got there, I remembered that when I was at Nike, we used to do these design camps, and we'd go off on some cool place for like 3 days, and we'd invite amazing people. So I curated some of those, and I invited Ken Kesey, who ended up playing my 5-year-old daughter as Uma Thurman's dad in even Cowgirls Get the Blues, Spalding Gray, Morphine, Harry Shearer. So all these amazing people would come, and I'd continue doing these design camps. And what happened was we'd make all these amazing connections, which fed our work, and also turned into all these different collaborations. One thing that I did when I was at Lego is I decided to do an object lesson. So my hair was like this when I went to Lego, and the first meeting in the design camp, I had the designers come up one by one and take turns shaving my head. And it was like some kind of object lesson about streamlining or simplifying or something. The Danes are very, there's some Danes here, I understand, and they're sometimes very literal, and some of the designers said, oh, so we'll shave our heads then. Oh, I said, no, it's like a bit. Don't do that. But what was funny is that Kjell Kirk Christiansen, who's the great-grandson of the founder, he came in, he was speaking next, and he kind of turned around and left the room because he thought he would have to shave his head. And so we still do these design camps at all these years later at Nike, Lego, Starbucks. Now we do them at Tether still.
There is a place deep, deep, an entire 48.5-minute journey into the woods. No cell service, no air conditioning, no private showers. Design camp. Two whole days of arts and crafts, guided tours, human pyramids, interpretive dance, friendship, and tons of, what's that stuff called? Storytelling. Yes, storytelling at Design Camp. Don't go into the woods alone. Design Camp.
So I was when I was living over there in Denmark. We lived in Aarhus, was the town there, and a singer came to town. He was actually from Seattle. I hadn't lived in Seattle yet, but I really loved his music. His name's Damien Jurado. Very honest, simple music, and when I was living in New York as an actor, I just kind of on a whim, I got my guitar out and I opened up the case and I started playing in the subway and on the streets. And I remember the first time I opened my case, there was a quarter, and then within 2 hours I made $40. I thought, oh, this is great. And so the first place I played outside was at the Dry Fountain there at Washington Square Park, and I got so excited about it, I started writing like a song a day, and I thought I was going to be, a rock star, and I ended up making a cassette tape, and that was back in cassette tape days, and I took it around to the clubs, and I started playing in clubs in the village, and so after that Nike, Lego, Starbucks, I was there for 20 years at those three places. When the opportunity came to start my own thing, there was, I wanted to have that gallery space that I talked about, where we did all that different work. But one of the hardest things was naming my company. So I have children, and naming your kids, that's a difficult thing. They're going to have that name the rest of their lives. But naming your company, you hope that'll be around forever too. So I didn't want to call it after my name, so I wanted to come up with a name that spoke to that emotional connection between consumers and brands, that we all do, that we create. And so back in the album days, like at Nike, I used to flip through my albums when I was naming things, and I'd look for things that would inspire me, names of songs or albums, and then cassettes, and then CDs. And now I was flipping through my digital music file, and I found this track on there on one of Damien's CDs called Tether.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. We're very excited to have Damien here tonight, and I'm especially excited because this is the name of this company is Tether, and Damien's album, Where Shall You Take Me, just so happens to have a song on there called Tether. And I've been a big fan of Damien for a long time, and when I took this space, I thought, it would be so cool if someday Damien Jurado could come and play right here in this spot, and even put in extra plugs here in case we needed to put in more amps and everything. So this is kind of a milestone for me. It's very exciting to have Damien come and play at Tether. So thanks for coming, Damien. Thank you.
I was a Boy Scout. I wasn't a very good Boy Scout. And they had this little subgroup in Boy Scouts called Order the Arrow. And you're supposed to dress up like an American Indian and dance around campfires, which I thought was, even back then, was a little politically incorrect. But what they gave you was a tackle box, a fishing box full of makeup. I loved that. So this was back in the 70s. I painted myself up like David Bowie, Aladdin Sane era, like Kiss. And That was the first time I really felt that transformative power of changing you on the outside so that you're different on the inside. I thought it was always the other way around. And so when I put on this other persona, it made me act differently, and I thought that was really fascinating. And then when I started taking acting classes, and stage makeup was one of my favorites, because, more makeups, and I love that transformative power of that. So I was at Starbucks, and I was working on Frappuccino, and we were going to launch Frappuccino in China. This was my business partner. This is Vicky Tsai, and she was my business partner, and we were on our flight to Shanghai to launch Frappuccino, and we were on Howard Schultz's jet, and we decided to stay awake all night because we didn't want to get jet lag. To customize ourselves to the time zone. So we talked for about 13 hours about what we were excited about, and we found out that we were both kind of these serial entrepreneurs. And she used to work in the beauty industry before Starbucks. And so after we both left Starbucks, we co-founded this company, and it's called Tatcha. And we formed it with this idea of bringing Japanese beauty secrets to the rest of the world. And we found this 200-year-old book. It's called the Green Book, where we found all our formulations. And Tatcha is now the fastest-growing prestige beauty brand in the United States, and could be the world now. But it's doing very well. And this came from that little journey that we took. And a few months ago, I was over in Kyoto, and there's Vicky, and I was dancing with a geisha, and Kyoka is the geisha. She's been our muse. And the idea, when we came up with this idea for Tatcha, I imagined a geisha getting out of a taxi cab in New York City. So the ancient meets modern. And shot this little piece over there, and I thought the mix of the music and the traditional fan dance was really beautiful and encompasses what the brand is about.
Baby, don't mess around because she loves me so, and this I know for sure. But does she really wanna? I can't stand to see me walk out the door.
So when we launched it, we didn't have any money as a startup. We started the company, and so we targeted celebrity makeup artists and beauty bloggers. And within 6 months, we had it at Editor's Pick in Glamour, Allure, all the major beauty magazines. We had it on the NBC's Today Show within 6 months as well, and then we had it in the Academy Award bags. And so it was great to see people that discover the product. This was a great little clip that I found on YouTube.
Oh, this is as beautiful as the other one. Again, I haven't opened this, but even when you open them, obsessed with this packaging, which I was actually going to get to. I thought this was just with the other product. How gorgeous. Oh my God. This is, like, I don't even know what to say. I just find this strikingly beautiful print. You take it out, and again, it's a whole experience.
Yeah, you have to guess where she's from. The summer before last, I was walking in the Masai Mara with a Maasai warrior. Haven't we all done that here? And he was helping us to determine which is poisonous and what's not poisonous. Everything out there wants to eat you. And what was amazing about it was that journey to get there. We were over there. I took my family over there to work in a village to build a school. And that's Andrew Black in the middle. Remember him from Nike Entertainment, then Lego, and now he's on the board of this organization called Free the Children. He introduced me to Craig Kilberger, who's here on the right. Craig, as a 12-year-old boy, he read about this other 12-year-old boy who was a slave making carpets in India, and he had been killed by his former master, and he read about it, and he was indignant as a 12-year-old, and he started this whole organization. He's about 30 now, and it's a global organization where they help these villages, but they also, the most important thing is that they help kids learn how to volunteer. So we do all their branding and all their design work, and the mamas make these bracelets that are sold in places like Nordstrom and other places, and the proceeds go back. The most amazing thing are these We Days. Thousands of kids attend these We Days. They have everything from Dalai Lama to Macklemore there. Just amazing celebrities that the kids love to go see. It's a several-hour event, and the only way that they can attend is by volunteer hours. They have to put in a certain amount of volunteer hours to go there, and it's put a lot of these kids on the path of both being better citizens, but volunteerism and showing them another way. So what was exciting is that after Nike, Lego, and Starbucks, when I was at Nike, Lego, Starbucks, I realized that I was inside a religion. So they're great religions, but when you work inside a company, it's like you're joining a religion, right? Our job as creatives is to get converts to that religion, to get them to buy that thing or join our cause, whatever it is. But when I used to meet people, like in the airport or somewhere, when I worked at those companies, it's like, oh yeah, you work there. Yeah, let's do. Oh wait, we can't work together. I'm at Starbucks, you're at wherever that is. And so the most freeing thing I think for me when I started Tether was being able to, everyone becomes a potential connection. People that I meet, people that I talk to, we might collaborate on something, they might become a client, whatever it is. And so when I started Tether, started working on things like Tatcha. Awake was another example. These three guys used to work at PepsiCo. They had this idea for a caffeinated chocolate bar. That's what we need, right? So it's one bar equals a cup of coffee. So they came to us, they didn't have any money, and so I said, well, okay, give me shares in your company, okay? Give me a piece of your company and we'll do work for you. So that was the first one that we did, and now we've done about 35 different companies where we have equity share in those companies. So we're co-owners in those companies, and we've done amazing, fun things with them. But because I was a co-owner of the company, I appeared on the Canadian version of Shark's Tank called Dragon's Den.
The chocolate bar costs $2.50, about $1 less than an energy drink.
This is an alternative to that Red Bull or that coffee.
Going to the hair for a second, did you get out of bed, have a chocolate, and then went, oh my God?
I do what I can with what I have left.
I may go there unless it doesn't work in financial services.
That's right. So we came up with the name Awake, and then we have the icon. You see the owl? Yeah. Actually,
You're a creative guy.
I was creative director at Nike, Lego, and Starbucks for 20 years.
That was a great moment because those shows, they always try to shoot you down. It's like, yeah, this isn't going to work, Like, who are you anyway? Oh, okay, yeah. So I love that moment. So Andrew Black, remember him? Nike, Lego, and then, introduced me to Free the Children. So now we've started another company called Brand Project. We've raised a fund where we now find emerging brands, and we start doing amazing things for them. So we can both fund them, and then Tether, my agency, we do all the creative work. He does all the brand development. Last one is shave your legs. I met Alberto Salazar when I first started working at Nike. Alberto was the world record holder in the marathon. And I worked in the Alberto Salazar building. He worked in the Ken Griffey Jr. building. He used to come over and visit his building. That's when I got to know him. And he said, I raced bikes at the time. And he said, you've never run a marathon? He goes, I'll train you for a marathon. World record holder? I said, okay, that sounds fun. He says, you help me with my cycling. I want to get better at cycling. So we did that. He trained me for the marathon. I helped him with his cycling. And that year, I ran my first marathon. My first of several marathons was the New York Marathon. And when I left Starbucks, I got this RFP for Gatorade to do their redesign of the whole brand, and I think I had 6 people at Tether at the time. I mean, I had just started, but I was able to really draw on all those experiences, those athletic endeavors, and all the experience I had to really create this story of what Gatorade could be. And we ended up redesigning everything for the company. And this is where it all comes together, where we have industrial designers, and we do advertising, and graphic designers, and branding, and interactive, and all the different disciplines. And we designed everything to now have this athletic stance. We had broad shoulders and narrow waist. We solved lots of problems with it. and we move them from one product, that hydration product, to fuel for your body. We have food and services and all these different things. We even redesigned the coolers. You see, they still have that ergonomic or that athletic stance, and we put the ergonomic dunk handle on there so that you could dunk more readily. I'm going to skip right to the end here. I wanted to get someone up on stage here, but in the interest of time, I'll just explain. There's cards out there in the lobby. When you walk out, there are 5,000 cards, so there's plenty for everyone. And these cards, on one side it says, life has a Bacon number of infinity. It says, find somebody you don't already know and share your personal connection with them on the back. Trade cards and find another person, and then share a picture of your connection, hashtag with Design Indaba, hashtag infinite bacon. And on the other side here, it has my name here, because we already have a connection. You heard about me. And then if you find someone, so you know how it's like, life is like this huge street of people streaming towards you. And you see people are walking past you. You look for a recognition, an empathetic look, and someone that you might talk to. That's the same thing that we do with all our products and our brands and our furniture and everything that we work on. Whether you're walking down an aisle of a store and you're looking at packaging, or you're browsing websites, you're looking for something to make that connection with and have that glint of recognition. So find someone that looks interesting and go up and talk to them for a second. Share something beyond what your name is and where you're from. Share something that might be a connection and write that down and then pass it on to another person. Thank you, everybody.